Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of what makes a business tick. Not just the big ideas, but the rules that keep it all on the straight and narrow.
Ever wonder who's really in charge of making sure a business plays by the rules? Today, we're diving deep into the administrative backbone of a limited liability partnership, or LLP. We're going to pull back the curtain on the powers, the penalties, and, yes, the paperwork that governs them. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the ultimate authority, the registrar. Then we'll look at a smart way to handle minor slip-ups. After that, we'll dive into the library of records an LLP has to keep. And finally, what happens when it's time to clean house? Let's get into it. Okay, first up, let's meet the most important player in this whole system, the registrar. This is the official watchdog for all LLPs. So who is this registrar? Well, they're not just some clerk stamping documents. Think of them as the guardian of transparency. Their main job under the LLP Act is to make sure every single LLP is operating above board and by the book. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The registrar's power isn't just one size fits all, it escalates. It all starts with a simple request for information. But, if that reply is late or it's just not good enough, they can take it to the next level and issue a formal summons. That means you have to show up and answer their questions.
And you might be thinking, well, what if I just ignore it? Bad idea. Section 38 is crystal clear on this. If you don't comply without a good reason, there are real financial penalties. This gives the registrar's power some serious teeth.
So, that brings up a good question. What happens when an LLP messes up, but it's something minor, something only punishable by a fine? Does every little thing have to become a huge legal drama?
Thankfully, no. Section 39 gives us a really practical solution called compounding. You can just think of it as an official way to settle things out of court. It's designed to handle smaller issues quickly and efficiently so everyone can move on.
Let's just break that down. Compounding is a settlement, while prosecution is a full-blown trial. It's faster, it's way more efficient, and it's specifically for those offenses where the only penalty is a fine. It's a pragmatic approach that keeps the legal system from getting bogged down with minor issues.
All right, let's switch gears from the big picture oversight to the day-to-day details. We're talking about paperwork, the records. Every business has a paper trail, but for an LLP, there are very specific rules about how long you have to hang on to every little document. So let's start with the most extreme category. Some documents are so important they have to be kept forever. I'm not kidding, permanently.
And when you look at what these are, it makes perfect sense. This is the LLP's DNA. It's the birth certificate, the constitution, the official address, basically everything that defines what the LLP is and how it works. Of course you have to keep those forever. Okay, moving on from forever, the next tier down is still a really, really long time. 21 years.
So what needs to be kept for over 2 decades? It's all about what happens at the very end of an LLP's life, the liquidation. The law wants to make sure that there's a super detailed record of how the business was closed down, just in case any questions come up years later.
Now we get to the most common time frame, the one that covers most of an LLP's operational records. And for all the students watching, this is the magic number to remember: 5 years.
And wow, look at this list. It's pretty much everything. We're talking legal papers, annual reports, financial statements, records of partners joining or leaving, the works. This 5-year rule ensures that there's always a solid, recent history of the business available for anyone who needs to see it.
All right, and that brings us to our last and shortest time period for record keeping. This is for the more routine stuff.
You can think of this as the everything else category. It's for all the other books and records, the day-to-day administrative trail, like simple letters about paying fees. Important to keep, but you don't need them hanging around for a decade.
So, the clock has run out. A document has reached the end of its required lifespan. What now? You can't just toss it in the shredder and call it a day. Nope, there's a formal process for destruction too.
And this process makes sure everything is accountable, right to the very end. According to Rule 27, the registrar is still involved. They oversee the destruction, and here's the key part: they actually keep a log of what was destroyed, when, and how. It's a complete chain of custody, even for documents that don't exist anymore. We're going to break down a really crucial process for any growing business in India, converting a traditional partnership firm into what's called a limited liability partnership, or LLP. Trust me, it's a huge upgrade, and we're going to walk through exactly how you get it done.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to hit the biggest question. Why would you even do this? Then, we'll dive into the legal nuts and bolts, break down the actual step-by-step process, see how it all gets stamped and made official, and finally, we'll look at what your business actually looks like after the change.
So first up, why bother with all this? I mean, it seems like a lot of work, but it's about way more than just changing the sign on the door. The real reason, well, it all boils down to one critical word that probably keeps a lot of business owners up at night.
In this slide, this says it all, right? Over on the left, in a standard partnership, you've got unlimited liability. If the business goes into debt, that problem follows you home. It puts your personal stuff, your house, your car, your savings, all on the line. But look at the right. The LLP acts like a legal shield. Your personal assets are safe. Your liability is limited to whatever you've put into the business. And honestly, that peace of mind, that's the #1 reason firms make this switch.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but how is it even possible, legally speaking? You can't just decide to do this one afternoon. It's all governed by a very specific law. So let's take a look at the rulebook for this whole transformation. So the law we're talking about is the LLP Act, and it actually gives you 3 different ways to become an LLP. You can convert from a private company or an unlisted company, but for today, we're focusing on the most common path, a good old-fashioned partnership firm becoming an LLP. It's often the most logical next step for a growing business, and all the nitty-gritty details are laid out in what's called the second schedule of the Act. Now, let's get clear on what the law actually means by the word convert. It's not just a simple name change. Think about it like moving houses. You don't just move yourself, right? You pack up everything, the furniture, the kitchen sink, even the bills and the mortgage, and you move it all to the new address. That's exactly what's happening here. The entire business, assets, debts, the whole shebang gets picked up and legally moved into the brand new LLP structure.
All right, that brings us to the really practical part, the process itself. So who's allowed to do this and how do you actually get it done?
Before you even think about filling out a form, you have to know the 2 golden rules. They're non-negotiable. First, everybody has to be on the same page. Every single partner from the old firm must agree to become a partner in the new LLP. No exceptions. And second, this is a closed-door deal. You can't bring any new partners into the mix while the conversion is happening. The exact same team has to start and finish this journey together.
So the paperwork is a pretty straightforward 3-step process. Step 1, all the partners have to sign a key document, Form 17. Think of it as your formal declaration of intent. Step 2, on that form you'll list the basic info about the old firm, its name, registration number, you know the drill. And finally, step 3, you take that Form 17 along with the LLP's new founding documents and you file it with the registrar. That's the official submission that really gets the ball rolling.
So, you filed the application, all the paperwork is in. Now what? How does this idea of a conversion actually become a legal reality?
Well, if the registrar, that's the government official in charge of all this, is happy with your paperwork, they issue the single most important document in this whole process, the Certificate of Registration. You can pretty much think of it as the LLP's official birth certificate. The date printed on this form, that's the day your new company legally comes to life. And you really need to pay attention to this number, 15. The second that certificate is issued, a 15-day countdown starts ticking. The new LLP has just 2 weeks to let the old registrar, the one who handled the original partnership, know that the conversion is complete. This is super important for making sure the old firm is properly closed out and taken off the books. You absolutely can't leave any loose ends. But what happens if the registrar isn't satisfied and says no? I mean, approval isn't automatic. If they see problems with your application, they can refuse it. But don't panic. That's not the end of the road. The firm has the right to appeal that decision to a special court called the tribunal, which handles these kinds of business disputes.
Okay, so let's say you've made it. You got through the process, the certificate is framed on the wall, and you are officially an LLP. What does that actually mean? What are the immediate legal consequences for your business?
The moment that certificate is issued, the changes are instant and total. Poof, the old firm is gone. In its place, the new LLP is born. And everything, I mean everything the old firm had, its property, its assets, it all automatically transfers over. But, and this is key, so do all of its debts and obligations. The original partnership is officially dissolved, wiped from the records like it was never there.
And this right here is one of the coolest parts. Business continuity. Nothing grinds to a halt. Any pending lawsuits, all your existing contracts with clients and vendors, they just keep going. The new LLP just seamlessly steps into the shoes of the old firm. For the outside world, business just carries on as usual, only now it's operating under a much safer, more secure legal structure.
Tackle a really important business transformation, how to convert a company into a limited liability partnership, or an LLP. We're going to walk through the entire official process so you know exactly how it all works. All right, here's the plan. First, we'll talk about why a business would even want to make this switch. Then we'll get into the non-negotiable conditions you have to meet. After that, it's all about the application process step by step. We'll look at what it means to get that all-important certificate, and finally, what business as usual looks like once you're officially an LLP. So let's jump right into part one, the switch to an LLP. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, we really need to understand the why behind this move and what the term conversion actually means in the eyes of the law. And that's the big question, right? Why would a company, either a private one or an unlisted public one, go through the trouble of becoming a more flexible LLP? This isn't just a minor tweak. It's a fundamental change to the business structure. So let's dig into what's really happening during this transformation. Okay, the most important word to understand here is convert. This isn't just about changing the name on the door. Legally, it means a total, absolute transfer of everything. We're talking property, assets, rights, privileges, and yes, even all the debts and obligations. The entire undertaking of the company gets handed over to the new LLP. So can any company just decide to do this? Well, no. That brings us to our second section, the conditions you have to meet. And really, it all boils down to two golden rules that you absolutely have to follow. And here they are. First, at the moment you apply, the company's assets have to be totally clear. That means no security interests, like a loan or a charge, hanging over them. Second, and this is a big one, the partners of the new LLP have to be the exact same people as the shareholders of the old company. No new faces, nobody left out. It has to be a perfect one-to-one match. These rules are non-negotiable. All right, so let's say your company ticks both of those boxes. Now you're ready to start the actual process. This is section 3, where we'll walk through the step-by-step application, which is basically your journey with the registrar. The whole path to conversion can really be broken down into 3 main stages. It all kicks off with a formal statement from all the shareholders. Then you submit the key incorporation documents. And finally, that whole package lands on the registrar's desk for their official review. Let's look at that first step. It all centers on one specific piece of paperwork, Form 18. This is the official statement where every single shareholder formally declares that they're on board with this conversion. It's proof of unanimous agreement. So what's actually in Form 18? It's the basic identifying information the registrar needs to see. You've got the official company name, its unique registration number, and the date it was originally incorporated. It's a simple snapshot of the entity that's applying for the change. Now, Form 18 doesn't go in alone. It needs to be filed along with the company's incorporation document and its related statement. Once all of that is bundled together, you have the complete application package ready for the registrar to begin the review. Okay, so you've sent everything in. Now what? Well, that leads us right into Section 4, receiving your certificate. This is the moment you've been working towards, the official green light from the registrar. And here it is. If the registrar has gone through all your documents and is satisfied that everything is in order and all the rules have been met, they will issue what's called a certificate of registration. This official document is specifically known as Form 19. And that date printed on the certificate, it's incredibly important. You can think of it as the official birthday of the new LLP. From that moment on, the company legally ceases to exist, and the business begins its new life as a limited liability partnership. But hold on, don't celebrate just yet. As soon as you get that certificate, a clock starts ticking. You have one more very important deadline that you absolutely cannot miss. You've got exactly 15 days. Within 15 days of that registration date, the brand new LLP has to formally inform the Registrar of Companies that the conversion was successful. This is a crucial follow-up step that officially closes the loop and gets the old company off the books. But what if it doesn't go to plan? What if the registrar isn't satisfied and refuses to register the conversion? Well, that's not the end of the road. The company has a right to appeal that decision before a higher authority called the tribunal. All right, for our final section, let's look at what happens next. In Section 5, Life After Conversion, we're going to explore the day-to-day practical effects of this huge legal shift. Think of it like this. The moment the new LLP is born, with its name on that certificate, the old company is legally dissolved. It's wiped from the registrar's records. And at that exact same instant, everything, all the property, the assets, the debts, is automatically vested in the new LLP. So does this cause chaos for the business? Absolutely not. The law is designed for a smooth handover. Any pending court cases, whether the company is suing or being sued, just continue with the LLP stepping into the company's shoes. All of its contracts and agreements are still valid, and really importantly, all the employees' contracts just carry on as if nothing changed. Now, this is a really practical point you can't forget. For the first full year of its life, the new LLP has a special requirement. On all of its official correspondence, we're talking invoices, letterheads, the works, it has to include a statement saying it was converted from a company, and it must include the old company's name and registration number. It's all about transparency. And honestly, this one quote from the legal schedule just sums the whole thing up perfectly. It says, "The whole of the undertaking of the company shall be transferred to and shall vest in the LLP without further assurance, act, or deed." That last part is key. Without further act or deed means it's automatic. You don't need another contract or another document. The conversion itself does all the work.